Good morning. Welcome to the Electrical Committee for January 18th, 2024. Present today are appointed officials, Finance Officer Chandra Phillips, City Attorney Paul Jensen, Public Works Director Troy Kruger. Also present at the meeting is the Electrical Superintendent, C.J. Hawkinson, along with councilmen today, Ron Sprinkle and Austin Clunt. Welcome all. And you got a budget here with nothing on it?
It printed the wrong thing. Chandra, could you print just the electrical budget for us, quick? I had a printer mishap. So, electrical update. Last committee meeting, we had Jacob here to give a kind of a presentation of what some of the future street projects will look like. If you guys recall, last year we budgeted $30,000 in the electric department to do a study for the city. And that was DGR electrical engineers just going through our current infrastructure and kind of where they see us going in the future. Some of our problems, things that needed to be addressed, like ASAP, give Kurt and myself some insight on some of these projects. They were helping us out last year with the written edition, getting some of that buried and the best way to go about that. But they're looking at a larger, they're looking at the big picture. I tried to get a definite yes out of Jared yesterday about coming down for the next meeting, and I did not get a definite yes. But that's the plan. But they're gonna really talk about a lot of stuff when they come. We're gonna talk about everything from the substation and backup generation, our backup transformer situation out there. Different scenarios for keeping the city up and running if we have another issue like we had this last summer. Our growth and like our current line size and our, what we can get, where we're gonna go with that if we grow. So it's gonna be a really, really pretty big topic, all on electrical. These guys are rolling out the meters like crazy right now. They got over 1,400 installed, so they're probably about 200 shy of having the whole town done. Everything seems to be working pretty good. We've had a couple issues with meters, some programming stuff, holding our demand for the full month so we can record that number. Had a couple of meters that haven't performed. They just didn't do what they were supposed to do. Not a lot, but so programming issues. I hear from Ray, a lot of programming issues.
Yeah. Some of them might have been, I don't know, they're computered kind of now. So plug it in, you try to push the program to it. We found that I don't want to say burn them up, but they kind of failed then, and you couldn't do it. So it was kind of a trial thing for us. So we sent those back, and they'll kind of refurbish them and get them back to us. The radios in them kind of seem a little finicky. That you got to let them go through their process and everything like that before you can do that stuff. And it was we kind of lost them right at kind of the beginning when we were first kind of digging into it. It was kind of a learning curve a little bit for us to do that. But I think we really only had like one meter like put it out there, and it just didn't work from the start. So I was like, that's probably
Out of 1,400?
so far, yeah.
That's
like,
pretty good.
That's something that we didn't do. Like I think
You got
the
good
other
quality
4 that we
control
did
out
was
there.
kind of on our bad as far as trying to learn what the heck to do, I guess, when we were trying to program them and stuff like that. And we don't know all the tools on how to fix them quite yet. We've got a kind of a class that we're going to today to, not going to it, it's over online or whatever, that to kind of help us troubleshoot them and everything like that. And so, but it takes us a bit, but we're getting through it, I guess. Hopefully after a year or so, it might take us 30 minutes instead of 3 hours to get 1 meter figured out, but we're learning along the way too, I guess. So that's kind of some of the things that we're seeing. Kind of had a few issues with meter cans as we're pulling them and stuff like that too. We've got the parts when we break them to do it, and ran into a few of them where people have decided to box their meter off and stuff. So, and we've addressed that too, as far as just sending them a letter to kind of get it redone, and it seems like they're doing that too. So the one holdup that we have now, I ordered meter seals clear back in November, and those things are back ordered, which I don't get. But talking about a piece of plastic and a little piece of metal, so they're supposed to be here kind of at the end of the month, but we got enough kind of, we're not massively changing them out. We kind of stopped that, but once those get in, we'll be able to kind of wrap it up too. So
and we talked about that stuff with Landis and Gear. We actually expected to have more bad meters than we did.
They kinda-
and they were really good about that. They said if you find something like that, just box it up, ship it back to them,
Yeah.
and refund us with a new meter. So the other handout I gave you was, and I'm not super prepared to talk about this today because I was gone all day yesterday. We didn't get this until Tuesday afternoon, that we were gonna be invoiced for that bucket truck that we ordered. And so Kurt and I were just going over that in my office here a little while ago. I was trying to, so this bucket truck was ordered. We got the go-ahead from council to order this truck like a year and a half ago, or a year ago. So
last year we talked about it, and kind of right in the middle when we were doing the 2024 budget, we had brought it up that the other bucket truck that we had, the one that this one's going to replace, it's 21, 22 years old. We could put our name on the list. The salesman had called me in the middle of kind of last year's budget season, and he said that he had one available for us kind of in the February time frame. We brought it up, and it looks like we got it put in the budget for this year on it. So, and he had texted me, he hasn't given me an official date, but he said February of this year that we'll receive it. And I think when we talked about it, we decided to buy it, because this will be probably the last time that this truck has to really be replaced on there. Hopefully, that would be my goal as far as, because at that point, the town will be pretty well buried. The only spot, this big bucket truck, the street lights out on kind of the 2 lanes out there. The other one that we have isn't big enough to reach that. And then as we're doing overhead and everything, we need 2 bucket trucks to do it, because we actually use the big one to kind of hold the lines out of the way and stuff like that. So that was kind of the reason why we have to replace it. And this will probably be the last one the town has to buy. And I could see once the town is buried, it would probably, we go down to 1 bucket truck, and that would be it. Basically at that point, it's gonna be used for streetlights and about it. There won't be anything else. And depending on how old it is and stuff like that, obviously that will be years down the road as far as what we gotta replace it with after that fact, but
Would you say, Kurt, how old was that truck we're replacing?
it's, I think it was a 2003.
2003?
Yep. We use it. It's, the transmission's kind of starting to go out on a little bit, but it also cuts out on us when we're in the air. It'll shut off.
Oh, that's a problem.
And you gotta start it up and stuff. So kind of when we do change a pole, we call it a tree, and basically it's up on our jib and it holds the wires out of us, and we can move them so we can get the pole set and everything like that. And it'll cut out on us once we get it set, tied in, bring it down, and then we have two guys kind of working on it. So we don't drive it, you know. Basically, it's getting used when we need to use it and stuff like that. It's kind of a necessity. It's an expensive necessity. I get that, but I haven't been trapped up in one, but I have been around the area where guys have been trapped up in them. So we do have a repelling thing, but as far as getting the wires and stuff out of there, it might be a little bit tougher for us and getting it down. So.
You budgeted for the 72-month, is what your budget is.
That's what I was wondering.
So, I mean, there was multiple options council was given. You could lease with a purchase to buy at fair market value, or you could lease with, and you own it at the end. And so what this is that you own it at the end, correct?
Yeah.
And it looks like you budgeted the 72. What he sent yesterday for Mr. Jensen's review is not the actual
Okay.
lease document, so all it was a credit app.
Okay.
So we'll need the actual lease document for him to review, sorry,
Yep.
to make sure that it has those state required.
The thing that we don't know, you don't know it until 40 days before delivery, is you don't know the interest rate. So that's the
Correct.
biggest piece of information right here. We saw these numbers before, we just didn't know what the interest rate was. So
Yep.
that's your biggest piece of information right there, is the interest rate of what they're gonna charge you.
How far out on this truck?
February of this year. So it was a MDU, Montana Dakota Utilities. He said that I don't know, they're a big enough company, they might be ordering 20 of them a year. And they backed out kind of on one. And he said that basically we had to take what their specs were, and it was pretty much just a plain Jane truck. Like, it would be like something like if you rented one from like a big rental place, you know, just bin package, bucket and everything like that, and looked it over, and it wasn't anything extravagant, and it was kind of like the one that we got now, basically, just kind of a plain Jane. You can add a lot of stuff to them. It's kind of like buying a vehicle. And he said we can get our name on it, or we could wait. So that's when we brought it up to, it was the committee, and they, at that time, and we put it in there, so it'll be kind of February. He had texted me about that's kind of when it's gonna be, so we'll have it then.
Did he state that it is Sourcewell?
I
Or
don't
Minnesota
know.
State bid or anything like that? Because that would be the only thing that holds us up, is if it's not on a purchasing agency, we do have to follow
Right.
it.
That's what I was just gonna ask.
I'm pretty sure it's Sourcewell. It's government pricing. I'll have to, I didn't get a chance to call him yesterday. Like I said, I was gone all day yesterday. I left at 7 o'clock in the morning. I got home at midnight
It
last
is
night, so I have not
cheaper,
had
I
a
guess.
chance, but I'll call Jacob today and get some more information on it.
Yeah.
Pardon me? No, I went and got parts for more equipment to
And even though the interest rate isn't
fish it.
gonna lock solid today, they can still send us a copy of their lease documents so that we can get
The-
through it.
The bottom line with that big bucket though is we don't really have a choice. We have to replace it. Kurt has to get his truck certified every year. If that truck doesn't pass certification, we don't use it. And it's getting to the age where it's not gonna pass certification anymore.
So let me ask, are we surplusing the old one?
It's not, right now it's got transmission issues. I would like to hang on to it personally. That's my opinion. We have an old bucket down there. It's a really old one. And we took the bucket off it. It's a digger truck, but it's got the hoist on it. We use it quite a bit. I mean, we use that truck to put up all the ball field nets, to put those poles up down there for the ball fields. I mean, we do, you know, we use it when we work on whenever it seems like we do something on the scoreboard, or we trim trees up by the ball field or something, you know, where we gotta get up in the air. And that other one is just, it's wore out. It needs to go, I mean, nothing works on it. It's got, the hoses are so old, they're cracked, and it's.
His old one or your old one?
This is one that's down at the North Shop. It's a super old one that came from the electrical department, like 20 years ago, I think. It's been down there a long time, but we've used it, historically, we've used it at least, 3 or 4 times a year on some kind of project, so the bucket truck's gonna be worth if we surplus it and sell it outright, somebody will buy it for like a tree trimming service or something, we'll get like $20,000 for it. I mean, they're not worth anything.
$20,000 is a lot of money. But you're saying you can use that.
It's a pretty, yeah, it's still, I mean, the transmission, he's got some issues with the transmission. Like he said, it cuts out once in a while. Not a big deal for us if we're just doing tree trimming or summer projects. But it's, it's a $20,000 machine that if we, went to buy a used one that was all fixed up and in, refurbished condition, it would cost us $100,000. So I think it would be a good piece of equipment for the city to hang on to have an extra, just so we don't have to borrow theirs or use theirs when we go to do. The thing about the bucket truck is when they gotta have them, they gotta have them. Just like Mark's water equipment. We were just talking about it yesterday. There's been times where we've had since I've been here in winter. We had that time where we were out at Golden Prairie Manor. We had to plow those guys in, pull that bucket truck in. They got up in the bucket. I couldn't see them. It was so bad out. The snow was blowing so hard. When they got up in the air to fix the wires, we couldn't even see them on the ground. That's how bad the wind was blowing. Same thing happened to us up at the Blue Tank one time. We had to doze a trail in, get them down there, set the bucket up, get them up in the air, and then we couldn't get the bucket out of there. We had to hook the Kelly's blade, hook our loader onto that, 2 vehicles to pull that bucket truck up and get it back out of there so we could get it back down in the shop. So I mean, those guys, when they need that piece of equipment to work, they need it to work. It can't not work. Their life depends on it. So it's not real good idea to be using their equipment to construct ball field nets and trim trees and whatnot. But that's not my decision to make. It's a piece of equipment by the city of Winter. You guys can do what you want with it. But it is time to replace his bucket.
Basically, this truck wouldn't affect our budget for this year. It'd be next year, right?
No, it's budgeted for in this year.
We've got it budgeted in.
But if they got the cash, in my opinion, it makes way more sense to buy it.
That's what I was just.
I'll bet you a steak dinner that Austin's already got all the what it's gonna cost us to.
It's wrote down. It's $60,000 extra to lease it.
$10,000 a year.
In the 72-year one.
Yeah.
Or, sorry. It's, 61,000. I mean, you gotta look at that. 7.5% interest in 84 months. That's a lot of money of interest.
That one's about 74.
If you wanted to,
Here, can I see that?
if you wanted to, you could purchase it outright. You'd have to do a supplemental budget to do so, because that is not in the budget. But if you wanted to, the cash is there. If you want to tie up the cash.
Could you use the 52,000 as budgeted plus supplemental
Yeah.
combination?
Yep. So it'd be 200,000 more that you'd be looking for.
You got 1.3 million?
That's not a real cheap interest rate.
1.9?
That's just the electrical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that would be one of those things that I haven't heard what DGR has to say. So without knowing what they're saying, the 5-year plan is for everything that needs fixed and the substation and everything down there, are you willing to tie up $200,000 without knowing what DGR says the city needs to do? I mean, that would be something to take into consideration. And I shouldn't say tie up, but you're using 200,000 on something that you could lease, but if there's, you know, if that is a transformer. that-
There's a transformer out
Yeah.
there, just
Okay,
say that.
so-
Yeah, because we don't have an idea what
Right,
it's gonna cost us update the substation or whatever and all that other issues that we've got.
I would say on this particular piece of equipment, I agree with Kurt, this is probably the last one that you're gonna buy. You know, the last one lasted 20 years. The big bucket doesn't, Kurt uses it more than any of the previous. I mean, there was time, I'll go back to like 2016, there was times where that big bucket never came out of the garage more than 2 or 3 times a year. Kurt uses it a little more than, but, it only has like, what, 20-some thousand miles on it?
I couldn't tell you.
18,000 miles on
On
the
any of
truck
that.
itself.
So here's something you have to take a look at. Last year budgeted revenues, we actually made 192,000 more because of the meters being more efficient.
Yeah, he was at 107%.
That
last year.
192 is surplus that you can use right now to save the 60,000. I think
Well, I'm just saying, I don't want us to rob Peter to pay Paul, put it that way.
I don't think you're in a situation, it's a great question, and I respect that, because that's not what we want to do.
With, I guess,
I think Chandra would agree with me, I don't think you're putting yourself in harm's way.
Okay.
In the big picture, if these guys come in and say there's, needs to have a ton of stuff, first of all, we wouldn't even know about it if we didn't spend the money to have them come here. We just keep operating day to day in the future until something blows up. But now we're moving forward, wanting to be proactive instead of reactive. But if it's a huge project, if we have 1.7 million in the bank or 1.9 million, it's gonna come down to borrowing money anyway.
though I guess the one thing with that DGNR thing, they're giving us a 10-year plan
Yeah.
too, by the way. So, from what I've talked to Jared, I mean, he's gonna talk to you about that substation and kind of the feeders coming out of it. It's the Achilles heel of the town. Obviously, we can see it when WAPA's gotta shut us down. There's nothing we can do. We lose power to the town. Those are the issues that he's gonna address. And it's kind of like, Austin said, yeah, we've dealt with it. You wouldn't know about it type of a thing in a way to go it. There hasn't been any words that you guys need to get that fixed tomorrow. Otherwise you are, don't want to cuss, but up the creek and things like that. And it's just going to be kind of a comprehensive plan. A lot of it's kind of just pinpointing areas. Hey, I would probably just start doing what you're spending right now in these areas type of a thing and kind of move from there. And that was kind of their one main focus where attention should be brought apart is kind of in that thing. There's nothing that I've talked to him about that it's like this is, but definitely being aware of that substation. He's gonna throw some big numbers at you. I'm gonna tell you that.
And there's
just
still $1.1 million in the electric reserve,
on there too.
there is, yep.
so.
Yeah, so, I mean, knowing that, I wasn't sure what the transformer was, knowing that DGR is not saying that there's something we gotta do like right here, right now, I would say, yeah, absolutely, we could do the supplemental, use the cash. And, because technically, they put more than that in there. Their expenses were under and their revenues were over, so they put more than, they could pay for this just with their excess from last year, with the 50,000 that's already budgeted. So if that's the way you would like to move forward and just purchase outright, as long as we find out that it is a source well or
Correct, we'll just have to
an
verify
agency,
that. Yep,
we can absolutely move forward on that.
yep.
Okay.
Just note that, as with every ordinance that we do, it's always referable. So the public can come back and say, absolutely not, you cannot buy it outright, you better lease it. So just be aware of that. But if we put it on first reading for February 5th, second reading February 20th, 20 days of publication, actually 27 days after that, because we have to wait a week before they'll publish.
Yep.
You'd be probably March 18th before you could write the check.
Yep.
So Kurt, you were saying that it was basic or whatever, I mean, does this thing need a bunch of stuff once you get it, or you put your tools in it and use it?
We can put our tools in it. We might like buy like a packer, like just like a toolbox to put on top to put, like, we could fit everything in there just to make it a little bit more accessible for us as far as stuff like that. like you can put inverters, you know, just, they put microwaves in them now. It's no different than a tractor and stuff. It doesn't have anything like that on
Yeah.
there. It's kind of, it's basically about the little bucket that we have. It has an inverter in it. We use it every once in a while, kind of like when we're pulling wire to run like the shop vac to suck a string through, but like this truck doesn't need that, you know, battery powered stuff nowadays. You can get away with that type of thing. And
Okay, I just
There's-
didn't know what you meant by,
no, we might have to, I guess, the biggest thing that we'll probably buy is harnesses for it. You know, that's a safety thing, and that's about it, but I was just, I guess, trying to say, like, yeah, it doesn't have a microwave or, you know, stuff that we just wouldn't use.
What do they use a microwave for?
Well, if yeah, well,
You're out in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, you get like a co-op or something like that. They might be 30 miles from the nearest town, and so they'll bring your lunch, yeah, and,
Why do farmers' tractors have six-pack coolers on them?
yeah, it's like one of those
Have a
things.
cold sandwich.
Things have changed.
That's right.
Easy now, we got a farmer.
It's got
we got a
AC.
farmer in the crowd. Let's not get a hostile here. Let's keep this civil.
It does have air conditioner in it. I guess the old one doesn't have air conditioner in it. I've
Did you
heard
bring
that
your-
from enough
Did you bring your
guys.
Uncle Tom sandwich with you today?
On there, so,
not
Do you
today.
think, so this is something, because they want to deliver, do you think they would be willing, if we write the full check, to wait to get full payment until March 18th?
I would think so. We can.
I got to call Jacob today anyway.
Yeah,
so I'll ask him that
talk to
question.
him and
Yeah,
stuff.
they
I
need
haven't
to
got
send
an official date. He had just texted me asking where to send the invoice and to deliver the truck, and then that's kind of when we dove into it, I guess, a little bit more. I didn't
Is
know
our
what-
cash price a little bit better than the lease price?
I don't think so. To be honest with you, he quoted me, Todd, the supervisor for me, he had a quote from him before that, and he wanted a four-wheel drive truck. I don't think we need a four-wheel drive truck. It'd be nice, but the price difference on it was huge, and he said just kind of what he did to take the four-wheel drive off of it and the truck
One was
that
like
he had.
328,000.
Well, it was actually cheaper than this, but it had went up to quite a bit more, and he said that from that, this price from the last one that he sent me was down $17,000. And I didn't go kind of like, well, this was an add-on or something like that, but the truck, the way it looked on the specs and everything, it would work just fine for us. I guess, yeah, might have to put another strobe light or something. It does have strobe lights, but might have to put like a directional beacon or something, you know, just maybe $5,000 on just stuff that we could add on later, but there's not like, hey, I need another $20,000 to do it to it. I don't see that coming at all with it the way it looks, so it's probably gonna go up if we waited, and it's kind of, that was a little bit less than what he had said, kind of a comparison to what was spec kind of for the city before I got here too, and taking the four-wheel drive off of it. So,
When we
Mr.
first
Mayor,
started talking
how
about
many,
this, we weren't even gonna
how
be able
much
to give
money
them
did you figure that we'd save if we purchase it instead of lease it? Interest.
61,000.
In the 60 months is 50,000,
Yeah.
Oh, I
72
was looking at
months.
the 72 month,
is
61,000.
61, 84 is 75.
Yeah. Pretty good chunk of money.
It's a lot
It's
of
a lot of
money.
money, yeah.
The interest rate went up a lot.
Yeah,
since
that's
the
what's
last time
killing
we-
Big time.
The 7.5.
Last time Jacob sent me these, last time I got the sheet from him, the interest.
4 1/4.
The interest rate was way down, like, it was way less than this.
Yeah.
And there, in 84 months, if interest is still at 7.5%, there's gonna be a lot of broke people.
We don't have any plans. I mean, if that's you guys' vote to pay cash for it, I don't see it as a problem. This year's budget, what Kurt has budgeted, his projects, we're gonna go forward with those. Like he was saying, I talked to Jacob yesterday, the stuff that he's gonna hit you guys with, I mean, minimal $2 million. I mean, it's not something we're gonna pay cash for.
No.
It's something we're gonna have, either set a reserve for and do it in the future, or we're gonna have to borrow money to do projects that he's talking about. And some of the other projects that he's talking about, 5 years down the road. I mean, this isn't, none of the stuff that he's gonna come in here with is gonna happen tomorrow or tomorrow, you know. Some of them probably won't even happen in, you know, for a couple, 2 or 3 years yet.
Well, I think with the surplus money from 2023, the difference in leasing to buy-in, and, I mean, Curtis is gonna take that bucket truck and get a little bit of something and sell it to another department. I think my vote is to buy it. But it's gotta go clear the the Sourcewell deal and then go to full council anyway, and full council, maybe this could be in our packet for full council to see and let them do the math, but it don't make sense to me to lease it.
I agree.
Okay.
And that, to that statement, that was something that our auditors did say this year. You know, they get why we lease certain things, but we are in a decent cash position, but also we're doing something the city of Winter has never done, as you said. We're not just being reactive, we're being proactive. And so
Right.
they don't see that side of it when the auditors say just buy everything outright, don't lease everything. But you have to look at those 5-10 year pictures too, and I think knowing now what
It's-
they've heard from DGR, yeah, absolutely.
It's a piece of equipment that we need, and it's not, how do I want to put it? An option, really. It's not a piece of equipment it's gonna sit there 6 months out of the year.
Well,
Well, it
even
is-
if it does, it's in the emergency, you have to have it dependable.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's,
I would note that, in his budget, in 2025, we are gonna have to make some, equipment purchases outright. His skidster will be that John Deere buying program, that's ends in 2024. And you looked at that, I think we would have to give them like 30,000, and then we would have like a total of $80,000 invested in that skidster. And it's got really low hours on it. That's what we would have invested in that skidster is like $86,000. A new one right now is 116, same model. So that one, we definitely want to hang on to that. It's got low hours on it. We've got attachments for it. These guys barely get to use it because the street department's got it all the time. Everybody loves that John Deere with the tracks on it. And then his boring machine.
bill 'em by the hour?
That was,
Starting to pay for the bucket.
that one you need to talk about because you have had some issues with your boring machine.
The boring, and that's something that when DGR kind of goes or plan, it's
You're
not
gonna
this-
need the bigger model.
Potentially, it's one of them things, like, when we kind of get nailed down, like a good plan of like, hey, what we need to focus on with DGNR and everything like that. The boring machine that we got, it works good for what we're doing with it now. But if you take like 7th Street down here between Main and Lamro, it's too small. So then you're either hiring a contractor or getting a bigger machine. We're pulling everything obviously in pipe, and the difference between kind of the underground and to overhead, you can see on that line, we've got a transformer sitting and tapping off that. You can't do that anymore when you're on an underground system because it's gonna be kind of seen as, that line is probably gonna be seen as like a feeder, and you gotta have separate runs so you don't take out like the breaker clear back at the sub. If we take that out, essentially the third of the town will be out for one little spot, and you want to fuse it where they are fused now. It's just, you can't tap off as easy on an overhead or an underground system compared to an overhead one, so we actually got to run 4 that way, and our machine just isn't big enough. We kind of ran into it a little bit on Plum, and it's not the easiest to do, and it was kind of short runs for us, where this one's gonna be a lot longer. And what we did was we went deeper, and then we shot, and we got lucky, and I don't know if anybody's probably not really been around the boring machines, but you know, you're making a hole, well, if you kind of dive down a little bit, even 6 inches, you can collapse and go into the other hole, and then you're falling that one. You can't really get out of it very easy. We got kind of lucky on a few of them and went a little bit deeper, and I don't want to say went shallower, but kind of we're at the minimum of what we wanted to be at in depth. So that would be something that we look at, and kind of what I've seen on the things that Jared has gave to me about it. We're going to kind of focus more on the stuff that we can use with this boring machine, but as we get further and we're getting those projects done, a bigger one might have to be talked about. And there's something, do we go out and kind of see contractor, what a contractor would cost to put it in compared to how much a new machine is? They're not cheap. Like, they might be a little bit more than this bucket truck, these boring machines. And so that's something where, and this one's nice because it is small. We can get it into a lot of spots, where this bigger one, it's, I don't know, it's kind of a double-edged sword when you do with it. So it's something that we gotta kind of talk about as we move forward and everything too, if that's an option. But, and I guess another thing, the prices, and I think Jared will say this, and the prices that he'll give us are gonna be contracted prices too, by the way. From what they're seeing out there, it's not us doing the work too with these prices. So that's something to keep in mind when he does give his spiel about it, that yeah, it's X amount of dollars, but that is a contractor putting it in and stuff, so it would be a little bit cheaper. But there is some spots like that I've kind of noticed, if we go to bury it, we might have to just hire a contractor to do it, because we don't, like, kind of out by like West Haven, to get underneath kind of that creek drainage, whatever you want to say it is, that machine can't do it. And it's yeah, it'll be kind of a bigger machine, depending on what they say we need to have in there. It might have to be like, and I'm not saying do the whole thing, but just to bore underneath something like that, it might have to be a contractor hired, just because it's not gonna pay for us to go buy a machine. I was looking at them this morning, they had a used one for $500,000 and stuff like that, where
You could
Yeah.
hire a contractor
Yeah,
or rent one if you have
On
your
there.
big bores lined up and rent it for a
and
month.
that's something too. I've never asked them like, hey, how much does it cost to just rent a boring machine
Yeah,
and
I don't know
everything?
what either. I know a local contractor used to rent a great big one all the time when he needed it. And then he had a smaller one that he used for normal stuff.
And that's,
Local contractors like McCready Construction, do they have a bigger one?
he just bought a new one, so I don't, and it was a Vermeer, so I don't know. They, like, I know Doug Osborne, they got one step up above the one that we got, and I think McCready's is one step up above ours, and that would probably work on there. I'm trying to think of the sizes. Like, we had them at Brookings, we had a size like the one we have here. We had the next size bigger, and then we had the next size bigger than that. And I bet you, I'm trying to think of like the heads, they call them a reamer head. And that is, I think you could probably have one on that. And it also determines on like soil condition and stuff like that. There's a few
Yeah.
other things, but I would think you'd probably be able to do it as long as they're not saying, hey, you need to bring back 10 pipe or something like that, because right now we're about at the max. We have pushed it further than that, and we've won most of the time on it. It's just, I think our reamer head's 8 inches.
Say you're good, Kurt.
On it, and we've put in 8 inches of product, and you're supposed to have about 2 inches of space in between them. And it's just, you could pull it apart, and then you lose it, basically, is all you're doing. But we've pushed it a few times. It works most of the time for us, so. On it. They do come with cabs and ACs. You talk to any of my guys, they do not need that. That's what I'm gonna say about that.
On the boring machine itself?
What's that?
On the boring machine?
Yeah, that's one of the salesmen said, that even these smaller ones are starting to put cabs on because guys are complaining about it and they can't get them hired. And he said that, and then these guys started whining a little bit about it. I said, nope. I said, I'll put a heater on you for in the summer and for you, so you can really know how it is. So. But I think other than that, that's kind of the only, as far as, that'd be the only thing that I'd see that would really potentially need to be upgraded. Otherwise, we kind of got all the equipment we need. There is, I haven't talked to Troy about this, but there's a piece of equipment that we've had down in there. It's an RT 855. It's kind of like a tracked backhoe thing. And we just haven't used it since I've been here. We've used it like once. And it's kind of sitting there depreciating. And I was gonna kind of talk to the guys about if we see any sort of reason why we need to keep that. That'd be something that I'd like to. We got that Mini X now, and that kind of what replaced it, but never got rid of it. It has a trencher attachment to it and a plow, but from what I've talked to kind of Ty about, that plow doesn't work the greatest on things, and the trencher,
It's super slow,
yeah, and
like turtle speed.
it's, I don't know. I'm sure back before they had their Mini X, it probably worked out pretty good for them, but that'd be something that I would
Not
look
really.
look into getting rid of too. Like it sits there, and
Have you ever seen those little bucket attachments for the front of a job, like a skid steer? They're, like you sit out there and it's that little bucket, that's what this thing is. It's just so small and you can, it's just,
It's not a whole lot better than a shovel, but it's not a shovel.
they got, yeah, exactly right. And the reason that they purchased it is when they were doing all that stuff, up on the,
Sunset.
putting in all that, and going into people's yards,
Yeah.
and we were going all the way to the houses. There were some really tight spots back up in there, and they were using it up in there, but
and that vac that we got, it's bigger than the last one they had, and a lot of that can be, you're talking about digging a hole this big or something like that. That vac's big enough and has enough power now, where the other one, it was basically find that utility and that's about it, where this, yeah, you can get vac a bigger hole and about the same time, so that kind of replaces it a little bit too, so that would be something that I would think that could be surplus and got rid of, because it's, I think they're like $30,000, I think I seen one used for, so it's just sitting there kind of losing money, I guess, in my opinion, by not getting used. And I don't know if any other department would need it or want it or anything like that, so.
So your vote is to surplus the old bucket?
We didn't talk about that. I mean, if you
The
guys
one that would
wanted,
replace, this new one,
Yeah, the one that the new one would replace, you would vote to surplus it or to keep it as another machine for the city?
no, we can keep it. I mean, you gotta expect $4,000 or $5,000 for a tranny if that's what you said's going out of it.
It's leaking, slipping. We've tried to put that transmission kind of
Sealer?
seal it, lock stuff in there, fluid, and it slowed it down, but it's,
And then, I mean, I know how truck shops are. It's gonna be $4,000 or $5,000 tranny, and they're gonna tell you, well, we have it out, let's put a $2,500 clutch in.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
what they're
wondering
gonna
if
tell you.
Is it the transmission or is it the clutch?
I guess I don't know.
but this is $100,000 used piece of equipment if you go try to replace that bucket that you have.
If you went and tried to find one that was, like refurbished, like they, when, the components on a bucket truck, the thing that makes it expensive are all your controls for the hoist and,
Sure.
all the hydraulic lines are new and replaced and the pumps are new and replaced and all that stuff. Yeah, it's gonna get expensive to find a good used one like that. This thing's only gonna be worth, you can find them all day long on the internet for $20,000, $25,000, $30,000. There's hundreds of them out there.
But you want to keep this for another department.
I think it would be great to have it down in the streets and the parks.
Would you guys consider that?
I know here in the next couple of years, we got some issues down in the city park where we have some of those huge trees down there. The elementary schools voiced their concern that some of those branches are hanging over onto the playground side. We gotta get up there and do something with those here pretty soon. We've talked about doing that this summer. And it's not something we can do with a ladder. We need and that big bucket truck is, it's nice to work out of. It's got if you're running a chainsaw or whatever, but yeah, we use it. The other one's shot. It's not worth putting any money into.
Is that one worth surplusing and just getting out of here, or is
We
there?
would surplus it just to get rid of it.
Okay, so we would surplus the one that you're using now and take his old one over to yours?
That's just my personal preference.
Surplus the one you're using now,
Yeah, that they are
and then
moved.
take the one from the light department back.
Pass it down.
We actually
That
have a
might
couple-
pay for your clutch and seal, maybe.
We actually have a couple of citywide streets, and we have some pickups that we're probably gonna getting rid of here pretty soon. The cost of fixing them up for what they're worth it's not a good investment. That little machine that he was talking about, I got a list on my desk of about 5 different things that we're maybe gonna do a surplus on here not too
Okay.
long.
Okay.
Spring cleanup.
That's all I got. You got anything left?
I think so.
So the purchase instead of a lease